Hey guys, what's up? Zags here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the F1 2018 driver lineup once again. It's a great topic to talk about because it's always interesting getting your guys' opinions. So yeah, we're going to run through my list once again, slightly updated on last time. But yeah, I've actually sort of moved back into my uni place now where I'm staying. So if you guys would like to see a room tour now, I've got a little bit more in here. Let me know in the comment section down below. But anyway, let's jump into this F1 2018 predicted driver lineup with all the rumours and gossip included. So I've got my book just beside me here with all of the stuff I've written down, looking at all the rumours, what people have been saying, and sort of taking into account all that and sort of putting together a sort of a prediction. So yeah, we'll go through the teams that have already signed up, both the drivers as well. So Ferrari, as they are on Wikipedia, I think alphabetical order. So Ferrari first, Vettel and Raikkonen both signed up for another year. You guys know my opinions on that already, so we'll skip over that. But yeah, I definitely thought they could have got a bit of a stronger lineup for next season. But when we went to Force India, because Ocon is signed up for next season, but what about their second driver? There's a bit of a thing going on about Sergio Perez. Does he want to stay with Ocon as a teammate? That's obviously a big thing because there's been a bit of crashing this year between the two of them. So who knows whether that's going to continue that lineup for next season. I think it personally will. I think Force India themselves want Perez to stay. But the thing, of course, is does Perez want to stay at Force India? Because there are a couple of other options which we'll talk about later. The two options really for him are Williams and Renault. They're probably the two that he can go to and actually get a good seat. I mean, above that, it's probably quite unlikely he's going to be getting a seat, because they're pretty much all signed up. But yeah, so I think Ocon will stay with Perez as a teammate next year. I mean, Perez probably don't really like that. He feels like he's had his time in a mid-table team. I mean, Force India is pretty good this year, but we'd still class it as mid-table. So yeah, I think he probably feels that he should be in a bit of a bigger team right now, but I think Perez will stay for next season. And the thing is, if Ocon beats him next year, Perez's sort of future is quite unstable because you don't really know where Perez is going to go if Ocon is suddenly beating him every race. We'll see, but yeah, Perez I think will stay at Force India for next season. Haas are all signed up with Grosjean and Magnussen, a pretty solid lineup for next season. A bit of a experience in that team. I think that's what Haas really need, is to develop that team. I think Grosjean is a really good driver. Personally, I'd love to see him in a top seat, but I don't think that's going to happen now. It's getting a little bit too late on his career, but I've got my fingers crossed. He's a very good driver. And Magnussen, a bit more of a youthful driver. He's had experience at McLaren, so he knows all that sort of stuff, and he knows how good or like a top team should operate. So I think that's really valuable experience for Haas as well. And he's a pretty decent driver as well. Definitely would suit Haas as a lineup as well. So Grosjean and Magnussen, I think both good friends as well. So I think a pretty decent lineup for Haas next year, and they've got some pretty good sort of American drivers, young American drivers coming through the ranks. So possibly they can put them into development roles over the next couple of years. But I guess that is the sort of idea for Haas over the next couple of years, is to get an American driver racing for them. But they've got to develop them. You know, we've got Santino Ferrucci in F2 is one of the guys that you probably got to look out for. He's pretty decent right now. Hopefully he's gonna propel himself into Formula 1 soon. It'd be really good to see an American in Formula 1. The last American we had that sort of had like a proper racy, sort of excluding Alexander Rossi because he only did like a race or two, didn't he? But yeah, I think we'll probably include Scott Speed as the last person to have a proper seat in Formula 1. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully America can get an F1 driver soon. It'd be good for the whole sport and America in general to get a bit more interest in the Formula 1 sport. So next up is McLaren. So this is such an interesting one. As I'm recording this, they have not confirmed they're switching to Renault, but it looks like it's pretty likely that's going to happen, maybe even today or the next couple of days, that's going to happen, that they're going to have the divorce finally between McLaren and Honda after that 3-4 year project just hasn't worked out whatsoever. So it looks like McLaren will be partnering with Renault for next season. Van Dorn already signed out, that was confirmed a couple of weeks ago, but will Alonso stay? Personally, if they go with Renault, I definitely feel they will. I don't think there'll be a race winning car next season, that's for sure. I don't feel that McLaren particularly will challenge for victories, even podiums, but I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. I want to see them back at the front, but yeah, I don't think there'll be a force for the victory next season. But Alonso, if he stays, who knows, he can drag a car anywhere. You know what he can do. Alonso's an incredible driver, so we'll see. Maybe he can drag them to a podium even if the car's not quite good enough. So, but yeah, this is driver lineups. I think McLaren will stick with Van Dorn and Alonso for next season, especially if they go with the Renault power unit. Of course, Alonso's got a lot of connections with the Renault family over the years. So yeah, I think he'll probably stay there at McLaren for next season. And who knows, they could be battling for podiums, but personally, I don't feel like that's going to be the case. But no, who knows? I mean, Renault, they step up their game massively. If McLaren step up their game in the chassis sort of area of the car, could be a pretty decent car. So I realised I've clapped my hands and stuff like that a lot in this video, but yeah, nonetheless, you're probably hearing it at the bottom of the screen, but it's not there. So yeah, let's move on to Mercedes quickly right now. Bottas and Hamilton both signed up. Obviously a very, very strong driver lineup. Bottas staying for another season, I think personally very deserved. He's done very good this season, picking up 2 victories already, and probably a couple more towards the end of the season, unless he's told to move over Hamilton, of course. So yeah, I think probably that'll be a really good lineup for next season. Probably one of the best, if not the best. Let me know in the comment section down below. Out of all the people I list here, who you think has the strongest driver lineup, that'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, Bottas and Hamilton I think will stay at Mercedes next season, and who knows, another championship could be theirs at the end of this season and the end of the next season, because they look pretty dominant right now, and who knows, that probably could continue for a very long time. So we're talking about strong driver lineups. I said that Mercedes is pretty good. Honestly, I feel Red Bull's is probably the best on the grid right now. As 2 drivers that sort of fit together well in a team, I think Red Bull have the best driver lineup in general. It's close between them and Mercedes. I think both of them have really, really good lineups, but I'd say Red Bull just edge it. Ricciardo, incredible. As always this season, probably been his best season of his career. Even though he's only picked up 1 victory so far, I'd say this has probably been Ricciardo's best season in terms of just picking up results. But it's hard to remember, like every season Ricciardo seems to do, except from 2015 where he had a lot of bad luck, seems to have been incredible. Like every year he just pulls out surprise results. So it's hard to say whether this is his best season or not. From recent memory, I feel like this probably has been his best. He just seems to pick up the results wherever. And then, well, I don't know. I guess he got wins back in 2014. And did he get a win in 2015? I don't think he did. But he got wins last year and 2014. So for sure, it's going to be interesting to see how he can continue for the rest of the season and beyond with Red Bull. Can they become a championship-winning team once again? But Verstappen, of course, had so many reliability errors this year. Nothing down to his fault, really. He's had an incredible season apart from that. I think he's actually sort of outperformed Ricciardo in the races they both finished as well. So quite interesting stat that one I saw over on Reddit. So I think a very good lineup. Verstappen, of course, looking to sort of challenge for a championship. Now he's proved that he's good enough to get victories, get podiums, but he's now looking for that race-winning and championship-winning car. And who knows, Red Bull might be there next season. I don't really feel like they will, but we don't know yet. We're halfway through this season. It's hard to sort of judge next season, I suppose, about like, sort of chassis and all that sort of stuff. But you feel Red Bull maybe a little bit of a stretch away, but who knows? Ferrari made a big sort of step forward from last year to this year, so it could be pretty interesting. But Ricciardo and Verstappen are very good driver lineup. Personally, my best on the grid, I'd say, but interesting to see. Will they continue that on and get the championship? Who knows? So Renault is a really interesting one for next season. As much as I'd say some British fans want to see Palmer get some good results and sort of stay in Formula 1, I feel that Palmer's time in Formula 1 is probably done. As much as I respect him, I feel he's had a really, really bad luck this season to go along with some obviously some sort of iffy results, you'd say. But I feel like Palmer maybe might be best for him to switch motorsport and go to something like World Endurance Championship. Who knows? Something like that might sort of. I feel like he's more of a consistent driver than a flat-out fast driver, so I feel maybe something like an endurance race might actually suit Palmer's style better. So I think maybe Formula 1 didn't quite suit his style of driving, especially these 2017 cars. So I think it's obviously disappointing for Britain to have one less British driver on the grid. I mean, if all goes to play like I feel it would, we'll only have Lewis Hamilton on the grid next year, considering how many great British drivers we have in Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3, GP3, all that sort of stuff. There's so many great drivers down there, and only one in F1 next year could be pretty interesting, but it is the way it goes, and who knows, we'll see. I'm sure some of those younger drivers rise through the ranks soon, but I think Palmer will leave Renault next year. Hulkenberg's already confirmed that is for next season, but I think Sainz will move from Toro Rosso to Renault. That has been discussed. It probably might even be confirmed by the time this video goes up, so who knows, but I think Hulkenberg and Sainz would be a great lineup, and I think Sainz can bring some of that youthful experience, exuberance, not experience, hasn't got too much experience yet, but that exuberance and speed, and hopefully challenge, I think it did definitely challenge Hulkenberg a bit more than Palmer has done this year, and I think they sort of edge each other on a little bit more and sort of propel each other up the grid. I think Renault might actually be a pretty decent car next year. I mean, Hulkenberg's done some pretty good results this year. I think there's like 6th and 7th positions he's had quite a bit this year. I mean, that's fair play considering that car isn't that good, and he's really been outperforming the car in a lot of races this year. So I think that will sort of continue for next season. There was a good sort of risk from Hulkenberg to switch to the Renault team, even though they are behind Force India in the constructors. You'd feel that if there were 2 people at the same sort of calibre of Hulkenberg, they might be challenging them a little bit more. But it's the way it goes, but I think Hülkenberg and Sainz will be a great driver lineup for next season, especially especially not one of the top 2 teams. I guess that's probably one of the best lineups on the grid, top 2 or 3 teams. I'd say that's probably might be one of the best. But leave your comments down below on that, of course. I'd be interested to see what you guys think on the best lineup out of my predicted 2018 grid. So let's move on to Sauber then, guys. So interested to see what they do next year. I think Ericsson's sponsors pretty big into the sort of team. They've got a lot of a shareholder in the team, so even though I don't think they like directly sponsor the team in a way, I think it's probably quite likely Ericsson's going to stay at Sauber next season. In my opinion, he's actually done quite good this year, even though, of course, he hasn't scored any points and Wehrlein has. I think when you look at some of the races, like I was looking at Monza, obviously I was there at Monza and all the other races, I think that Ericsson gets a bit of stick for no reason. I think he's actually doing quite a lot better than people think, and he's keeping up with Wehrlein, who people think is one of the best sort of young drivers on the grid. But unfortunately for Wehrlein, I don't think he'll keep his seat next season. Obviously switching to the sort of more recent Ferrari power units and sort of becoming a Ferrari B team, I think it's quite unlikely the Mercedes young driver is going to stay there. So for next season, I think Sauber's probably going to hook up with Ericsson. I think that's going to be quite good to get that sort of quite a decent amount of experience in Formula 1 now. And him alongside Charles Leclerc will be really interesting for Formula 1. And it is becoming a sort of Ferrari B team. So who knows, it could be completely rebranded in the next couple of years. Who knows, Sauber's pretty good at rebranding into a pretty decent team. We remember back to BMW Sauber a few years back. They were a pretty decent squad. And who knows whether they could become like Sauber Alfa Romeo or something like that over the next couple of years as a Ferrari B team. Be really interesting to see, but I think, yeah, Sauber next season, Ericsson and Leclerc, I'd say that's a pretty decent lineup. So next up we move on to Toro Rosso. Now, even though Sainz is confirmed at Toro Rosso next season, it's pretty unlikely that's going to be happening. So it looks like Kubica will finally, or luckily for me, keep his seat for next year. Obviously I'm a big Kubica fan, but unfortunately for me, not had the greatest season, and even as a Kubica fan I will admit that. But hopefully he'll keep his seat for next season and sort of prove to everyone that he's actually quite good. Because you guys remember back to 2015, he beat Daniel Ricciardo legit on points. So he's the only person to do that in Formula 1 ever. He's beat Daniel Ricciardo on points. Just to let you know. So yeah, Danny Kubica probably will keep his seat for next season, especially if Sainz goes. And that means that Pierre Gasly can finally get into Formula 1 with Toro Rosso. He's having a pretty good year in Super Formula. Last time I made this video, he was sort of mid-table. But after that, he went and got 2 wins. So that sort of put that video to rest a little bit. So Pierre Gasly getting 2 wins on the bounce, meaning he's now 2nd place in the Super Formula in Japan, and they're quick cars. I think they're quicker than GP2 cars, Formula 2 cars. So I think he's having a pretty good season out there, and actually having a quite a good close season to Formula 1 in a way, where they're pretty damn fast. So yeah, Kvyat and Gasly, I think that's a good lineup for Toro Rosso. But then at the end of the season, I guess Kvyat's got to make or break it there. I don't think he'll stay another season at Toro Rosso after that, but I think he has got a Red Bull contract for next year, Kvyat, but not a Toro Rosso contract. That makes any sense. They sort of sign him up as a Red Bull driver, and then they can sort of put them wherever they want. But I think if they want to try and develop the car with that Honda power unit, it looks like it's going to be going to Toro Rosso next year. I think Kvyat has had a pretty decent amount of experience in Formula 1 now, so I think developing the car with Kvyat will be really good, and getting some fresh blood in there with Gasly will be good as well. So yeah, I think Kvyat and Gasly, pretty solid lineup for next year as well. I mean, I think so far next year is looking pretty good. We've got so many good drivers next year. I mean, I look down the grid, I don't really see anyone that I see is bad on the grid next year, which is pretty good. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below, of course, if you think any of these guys are bad. I can see where some of these comments are going. But yeah, of course, leave that down below. Let's get on to the last team, Williams. So finally, Williams, of course, one of the British teams on the grid that's hopefully going to propel themselves a little bit further up the order next year. Been very sporadic with their results this year. Seen obviously with the Stroll results, getting on the front row in Monza, getting a podium in Azerbaijan, but then like really random sort of results in between with like 15th, 12th, stuff like that. So yeah, you kind of feel that they need to be improving for next season just to get a bit more consistency. They're sort of a very good car in a straight line, we know that, and they've got good top end speed, but the downforce, as you guys maybe have been seeing in my career mode, is a little bit to be desired. But anyway, so I think Stroll will stay for next season. I'm not too sure. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, he's not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure he's confirmed for next season at Williams. And the big thing, who goes alongside him? So Wehrlein is definitely an option here, but I think they need somebody in the team that's over a certain age to do the Martini sponsorship. I thought it was 23, which Wehrlein is, but apparently it's 25. So that sort of rules out Wehrlein out of this. But the big talking point here is Kubica. Apparently they've been in contact with Kubica over the last couple of weeks. That's really interesting. I mean, I'd love to see Kubica back in Formula 1. Even though I don't think he's the outright fastest driver in Formula 1, I think, or like to come back, I think there could be quicker options out there just as a story and as a PR thing, which of course Williams sort of would love. It would be like a PR like phenomenon. It would be incredible for Williams if they can get that sort of story back into Formula 1. So I think Stroll and Kubica would be incredible. I would say maybe Kubica has the raw pace that Massa doesn't anymore, but we don't know. Obviously, we really don't know. So it'd be a big risk for Williams to go with Kubica for next season, but I think it'd also be a great story. And even if it was just one season, Kubica can come back and prove himself, but who knows where Williams will be on the grid next season. It'd be gutting if Kubica came back and Williams were terrible. It'd be like such a sort of sad way to end the story in a way, but he'd be back in the Formula 1, and I think Kubica is like a bit of a Alonso figure. He could drag a car to somewhere higher up the order. I mean, a lot of people weren't Kubica fans when he had an accident. My friend Will was a massive Kubica fan, and yeah, we always had the rivalry between him and Sutil. They were quite close to each other on certain occasions on the track. But I do have a huge amount of respect for Kubica, even though there's obviously a bit of banter back in the day between us. But Will was sort of a true Kubica fan. I was a true Sutil fan, and I've got to admit Kubica obviously was a little bit better, and probably could have been in a top team, probably winning championships. He was in the right car at the right time. So yeah, really interesting lineup, guys. So let's just quickly run through it for you guys. So Ferrari, that'd be Vettel and Raikkonen. Force India, that'd be Ocon and Perez. Haas would have Grosjean and Magnussen. McLaren would have Van Dorn and Alonso. Mercedes would have Bottas and Hamilton. Red Bull would have Ricciardo and Verstappen. Renault would have Hulkenberg and Sainz. Sauber would have Ericsson and Leclerc. Toro Rosso would have Kvyat and Gasly. And Williams would have Stroll and Kubica. So let me know, guys, if you think that'd be a good lineup for next season. Do you think it's realistic? Do you think, who will be at Williams? Could it be Massa still? Could he stay? But I think Massa will probably go to DTM. Sorry, Massa will go to Formula E and Verline to DTM if all these switches took place. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Have an epic day. Please remember to leave a like on the video. It's massively appreciated. Hopefully we can get to 200 likes. That'd be absolutely epic. And maybe if you want, we could do a setup video around here. And we could also maybe do another one of these videos once everything's confirmed and I can talk through my opinions on the full grid. Thanks for watching, guys.